Hey guys, Delta here, and here are my thoughts on the Lightfall raid being changed from 24 hours to 48 hours, and I'm going to be debating with one of my casual friends who has never gotten a day one on why this is good, why this is bad, and all things in between. So, first off, I want to go with my opinion on it and why I do not like the changes of this becoming a 48-hour raid. Firstly, there are going to be tons of guides telling you how and what to do it, where people will just use those to get through it just so they can get the emblem and have this prestige. Oh, I completed it in contest mode, which is an accomplishment for completing it in contest mode. But with all the stuff that we have to survive, it won't be as much of a challenge to do so, in my opinion.
Yeah, Delta's friend here. As he said, I'm a self-proclaimed and outside identified casual player. Um, it's I see the appeal and the want for having a tangible reward for being part of your, day one push to complete this hard activity. However, I feel like some of the points that should be brought up for this argument over the push for 48 hours versus 24 hours. Yes, 24 hours opens up less and makes the push for it even harder. 48 hours definitely panders to the casual landscape a lot more, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing for this DLC specifically. One being, this is supposed to be the penultimate chapter to this 10-year saga they've been creating. The raid is very obviously going to have some big push for story, and not saying that other raids in the past haven't been big pushes for story, but kind of we're thinking Infinity War here to whatever final shape being expected as the end game of this story. To with all the big changes coming in towards build crafting. It's going to be streamlined. However, we are losing a lot of access to what we have. Granted, we're going to have time to explore those options and absolutely create new, horrifyingly overpowered ways to survive. But with all the changes coming and essentially becoming a Destiny 3 of sorts, I feel like this push does good and harm. There's no real way to say it. You can't really pander to both the casuals and the hardcore sides. And they're trying their best to create something down the middle without fundamentally choosing sides.
I totally get it from that perspective where it's story driven, the reason why they want to do it 2 days, but at the same point the story would be the same if they completed it week one versus day one. We still always get the story information after the team has beaten it. For example, like Last Wish, we got the cutscene with Riven with the
Absolutely, yeah.
wish. My main issue with it is that they're removing the benefit to those who could complete it in the 24 hours. And looking at streams and stuff, I feel like it's different than watching a guide where you get hand fed the information versus where most teams will mute closer to the end of the raid, knowing that they get worlds first. Like Salta Crepo's team will mute so they can strat hide and not tell people the strats, so people have to infer off of what they watch. Now, I'm not against giving it to more players, but if it's going to be longer, I feel like it either needs to be harder or the people who complete it in 24 hours need an extra reward, like get the exotic or get a special variation of the emblem, like have a 24 and a 48 or a 24 and a contest mode and make contest mode the permanent mode and then completely remove master.
That's something I can completely agree with. Opening it up 48 hours, as we see with Vow of the Disciple, between the 24-hour mark being, the last team was what, 893 placement, somewhere around there.
So for Vow of the Disciple, it was 893 that ended exactly on the 1 day mark, but the last team that most likely got the day one emblem was the 892 team. But as soon as you open it up to the 48 hours,
It jumps up to like,
that jumps up to
yeah.
6,800. And that's because there's a plethora of guides.
Mm-hmm.
There's a plethora of ways that people are learning how to do it, either using raid secrets, watching back on previous streams, seeing what they actually ran and what they did. So there's a whole list of things that people have access to as soon as that 1 day mark is ended.
100%. I mean, if we were living in an ideal world, there would be a shift. I mean, I completely agree. People who completed in the first 24 hours, they should get their own emblem and still have another special emblem where, 48-hour mark, they get their own, and then those go away forever, and you only have, whatever emblem will be accessed afterwards, or, first 24 hours should get a guaranteed exotic. Of whatever raid we're talking about in the situation, the one coming in Lightfall. But just looking at it, I mean, when has Bungie ever delivered perfect changes in every update they've created?
Another point that I saw on Twitter though was that they're going to be probably doing this 2 day because of server end issues. And to what I have to say about that is that I think they should probably do a public test server to test the servers, not exactly for the raid, but have something to where we're testing Lightfall servers and testing the code that they put in, because we've had so much server issues. Spire of the Watcher, about an hour and 25 minutes into the dungeon being released, everyone was getting error code Celebres. API was down 3+ times during the season. Season of Splicer, I wasn't able to log on for 16 hours of the DLC being launched or the season being launched. So there's a lot of back-end server issues that people think that are going to be the problem.
I mean, don't forget about that massive slip-up Bungie had recently.
Oh, with the 24 hours of Destiny being offline.
And having to roll back accounts.
Mm-hmm. And then another issue could be the XP lockouts. If they don't address the XP lockouts, then that could be another issue in day one. You could be sitting at the end of first encounter for 5 minutes, and that's 5 minutes wasted on your day one that you could have been figuring out second encounter, or figuring out the jumping puzzle, figuring out where to go, because you're completely blind. You don't know where to go. You don't know whether you go left, you go right, you go right, you go left.
It's absolutely an issue. Unfortunately, as we have seen in the past and we continue to see, they're not able to fix everything and sometimes seem to refuse to do so. The best they're doing, which I'm saying is the best they could be doing, but the best they're doing right now is trying to find a blend. They're obviously trying to go for bigger, fancier things with, utilizing different technology or pushing for bigger, brighter things. From what it sounds like, we should be very excited for this next area, what Neomuna, and exploring that's going to be a vibrant new city, and who knows what host of game-breaking glitches might.
And especially with the new subclass where we're literally airborne and grappling on to random objects. We already have like well skating, which breaks the game. What can Strand break? It's my question.
Yeah, but best we can do is just wait and see what happens. I mean, we don't necessarily know how difficult the raid is going to be. They could make it ambitious, considering it is supposed to be Infinity War. If they're taking, inspiration from media like that, we might lose in the raid, even with a victory. They could try to push it to be one of the most difficult raids possible. I mean, I would hope so, because difficult raids always create more exciting and entertaining situations for those participating, as well as those who don't feel up to the task of participating and enjoy just watching it instead. We don't necessarily know what the ramifications are going to be, kind of what the afterwards will look like.
Well, especially with, I feel like players keep progressively getting better and better. And this goes for anybody. But if we take a look at Last Wish, how only 2 teams beat it, and it took almost 18 hours, and most of that struggle was in Vault because nobody understood Vault, left being Pen and right being Ant, and people couldn't grasp that and understand that because it was confusing. It was something we never had seen before, and it wasn't something like most raids, all mechanics lead up to each other, whereas that was the new factor added on. And it wasn't used in any other part of the raid. Matching symbols was used in Riven legit, but for Vault, where we had to know, well, left is Penumbra and right is Antumbra, then it was completely different. That's what made that one so hard, on top of light level.
It was a challenge from Bungie of
Mhm.
doing something we've never done before, and well, I guess you've never
I
done
think
before,
I think
but
it was Vicarious Visions who made that raid still,
yeah, it
because we
was.
were
Yeah,
with Activision at that time.
yep, it was
So
Forsaken,
yeah, it was their split from
and
Activision.
now they're partnered with
Sony.
Sony.
Yeah. So I mean, they weren't partnered with Sony for Val, so maybe we get something Last Wish esque coming for this raid. And that would be fucking awesome if it was Last Wish esque coming for this raid.
It would
Because
definitely,
then that would help
yeah,
support the endgame players. Because if it takes 18 hours, because the last multiple day ones have taken 5 to 6 hours for the world's first clear, which I, in my honest opinion, don't think it should take 5 hours. I think it should take 10, 12, maybe 13
yeah, yeah.
hours.
Especially
Like,
going in blind, and it
yeah.
should be definitely challenging considering story wise, it's our character's first time dealing with those kinds of events.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely, 8, 12, maybe even pushing it for like a really challenging one, like 16, 17 hours to complete.
Yeah. If they add a lot of encounters, very challenging and hard mechanics to actually figure out, very chunky bosses, like War Priest was a challenge in day one due to the fact that his health bar was really chunky, and Caretaker was a challenge day one due to ammo economy and health bar.
Yep.
And they're in the 20 millions worth of health. So we get something in the 20 millions worth of health, then it's going to be definitely a damage check for people. And you're out, especially going to have to focus on ammo economy using Aeons, special finis. Now, your primary is not going to do jack shit because, like, let's keep it real. We got Touch of Malice doing like 10k per shot. We got Outbreak doing whatever it does, Hierarchy of Needs. We have so many primary damage options, but our main focus should be on the heavy weapons for that and using like maybe abilities or golden gun cycling and all that. So we have plenty of options for the damage department to cover those. So mainly chunky bosses, hard and confusing mechanics, and don't recycle the mechanics is what I think. Because most of the raids will recycle the mechanics and continue to expand upon them. But I think if we switch up what they are so that we have to learn new things constantly,
Yeah.
like maybe keep one buff that's the same, like the greed buff from Spire of the Stars, or pervading darkness from Valve the Disciple, so on and so forth. Like we got to keep some form of debuff or buff that we may have to look out for, but don't make it like shoot symbols, shoot symbols, shoot symbols.
I would
dunk balls, dunk balls.
I would hope, and though I know that it is an ignorant thought process considering the past with Bungie and what we've come to expect, I would hope that they would learn, and especially as stated, this being a penultimate chapter to the saga that's, we've been following for 10 years off on love and hate relationship. We followed it, and I would hope they would challenge us with something new. Given Witch Queen, Vow Day 1 wasn't challenging, but it was challenging at the same time based on what I've seen. The best of the best could obviously, take whatever comes their way and push through it. And it took longer for others, but they're still able to get it. But with, the legendary campaign kind of setting the new bar and expectation of what it should feel like for a challenging endeavor into the Destiny universe, I would hope that they continue that and find ways to improve upon it.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, there's no real way to pander to both hardcore and casual players in a way that will make everyone happy. The best we can do is hope for the best and just enjoy whatever we can.
Honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to a compromise where we do 12 hours instead, where it's 12 hours to give more wiggle room for people. Because once you hit that 24 hours extra time, there's more time for people to do guides. But after a day one where you're in it for maybe 10 hours or 6 hours, you're not going to immediately make the guide, I don't think, because that's going to be the 24 hours. But 12 extra hours adds a different window to where everybody can participate still. They have access to maybe a few guides off of Raid Secrets that are taking information from streams and stuff to teach people the strats. There's still that resource there. but it doesn't open it up fully to everybody else.
Yeah.
12 hours to get this emblem, maybe, or like maybe a 6 hour, 8 hour extension or something
Even
to help with time zones.
even an easy fix, which, I mean, maybe not universally, but would definitely be the best option based on what we've seen. Bungie, stop trying to launch things on Fridays. I understand you're trying to open up some of the weekend
Well,
for casual players.
no, they don't want their workers in on Saturday. That's why they don't work Saturday, Sunday. And to me, either you could shift their schedules to where they work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday,
Or just,
then,
a special event where it's maybe not expected, but you get a little bit extra pay for coming in on that day or something. It's just something to incentivize them, because when you open it up on a Saturday, you can have a 24-hour raid race. Give people all of Saturday to get in, get shit done.
I feel like most of the population will be on Saturday because most people work Monday through Friday. That, or I would say they should do a poll where they're like, when is the most Destiny players active? And like, or even like look at statistics. The statistics will tell you when are the most players active on Destiny 2. Like, look at your player count on individual days. What days are they most active on? What days are they able to play?
And even if they are potentially using that, it would make sense if Friday you would get a massive uptick. But if you were to look at the timestamps behind that, it likely wouldn't be until late evening that you're getting that massive. So even if you're looking at it as a singular day, you're going to have a bunch of players on that day. Some of that is going to be much later in the day. Hence where the easiest solution would be Saturday, open it, make that 24-hour challenge, and then Sunday you have your casual day. Most people aren't going to work. If it's casual, they can get it done before they have to go to bed to prep for work. It's the easiest solution, and unfortunately it's not the one that is taken. So we just kind of have to, I don't know. It feels kind of arrogant to say as a casual player, but I just feel like with all the arguments and stuff, we just have to learn to deal with it.
And another thing is, I feel like maybe some casuals won't even want to touch the raid until it's off of contest, seeing a lower completion rate in total from day 1 to day 2, because people are going to be like, well, I don't want to touch that. It's not as easy as I want it to be. Because, like, I don't want to get tapped by the Timmy Dreg over there.
Oh, yeah, no, there's an absolute there's you have your hardcores and your casuals, but then you even have your split in hardcore of like hardcore, and then hardcore, and then you have your split in your casuals of like casuals who just don't have the time necessarily to do everything. They don't care about the difficulty. They don't care about any of this or that. It's simply just not having the time to play, so they can't do big commitments. And then you have our little blueberry prissy-footed ballerina wannabe princesses that are like, this game needs to be easy. I had a hard day at work and I just wanna sit down and I wanna dance with my friends and
do the raid. Cause it should be easy for me.
It's like, no, like there's a reason it's called end game content. There's definitely, you shouldn't be trying to make it impossible for people to complete, but it shouldn't be fucking walking in middle of the day because you had a day off for some reason, walking in
and statistically, I want to say that most casual raids, now this isn't any merit to their skill, but most casual raids take 1 hour off of contest. Vow of the Disciples an hour like 30, King's Falls like an hour and 30, Deepstone 1 hour, VOG 1 hour. It's usually under that hour mark. And for most endgame players, it's over half that. It's
if
like
not even more.
Well, if we get into speed running, it's even less. But if we're talking about like on average, how fast they complete it, just like going through, no skips, probably about an average of half hour to 20 minutes. So it's nearly half that time. And most of the time they complete it within 6 to 10 hours for a day 1. Maybe even 18, depending on what kind of error codes they get or if they're really struggling hard on a certain encounter. So to me, if it's really going to be given out to where it's 24 or 48 hours and casuals are able to participate. And I'm not using casual as a term to disappreciate the players who are
It's not meant as an
yeah,
insult.
but I want to put that out there that they're most likely not going to beat it, but with a guide, it boosts their likelihood tenfold.
Yeah, I definitely see your point. It's definitely an interesting dilemma we find ourselves in. I mean, it's both it's a horrifying and beautiful thing, these arguments that happen within the community, because no matter what, when you get down to why they're happening, we all have passion about the game. It's just with a game like this pushing to be an MMO without necessarily being an MMO, while pushing to be more like an MMO, there's no way to appease the masses. You're always going to have some discord.
Well, if we're going to go on to the topic of MMOs, I feel like we need to talk about MMO day one raids. Because most MMO day one raids, they don't take one day, they take days, weeks to complete. Like World of Warcraft, for example. I never touched World of Warcraft like that, and I never participated in any day ones for those. But I know for a fact that it's not one day, it's a multi-day course.
Oh yeah, no, it's I mean, even it wasn't even necessarily just the raids that were difficult when it came to WoW. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's the famous story of Henry Cavill almost losing his chance at playing Superman, sore subject for some right now. Apologies, but he almost lost his chance to play that role because he was in the middle of not even a raid, but just one of the high, like a dungeon or something, and was in the middle of it with a party. And because he was like super hard focused, like intense in it, trying to get that shit done, because it was challenging as heck to do those kinds of activities in that game. He almost missed his chance to play one of the biggest roles that he's played it, like ever.
I actually didn't know that story, so that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think my end takeaway from this is I want either the raid to be hard or the people in 24 hours get something different than the 48 hours to prove merit. Like, you could do a placement tracker, give them the exotic early, or like maybe a discount on the jacket even further or something, or something else. And it doesn't have to be any of the things that I listed, but something to help, like, feel like for the hardcore end game players that they aren't depreciated, because there's been patterns over time that Bungie doesn't like their hardcore player base. Like Worldline Zero, it was in the game for 3 years and didn't get touched and then just gets poofed out of existence. Sword skating was in the game since Destiny 1's launch, and you can still do it in Destiny 1, and they took it away. Eager Edge is a back and forth thing with Bungie. At the start of Beyond Light, they said they were going to nerf Shatterskate, and look at us now. We're going into Lightfall, and nothing has changed about Shatterskate whatsoever.
Thank God.
And it could change in Lightfall, especially with how they're eager changing.
Very true.
And with Strand. So there's a lot of things that they don't like that the hardcore player base does, and then they just take it away.
I think you'll find, even with most casuals, I definitely won't say all. Like I said, there's the prissy-footed ballerino princess wannabes that are fucking will die just from you skipping the wrong way. But most casuals can see, like, we'll agree, endgame players, hardcore endgame players who get that stuff done in under 24 hours, they should absolutely get a reward separate. And for if they want to do 48 hour, even for opening up that 48 hour, like, make it another emblem. But once that closes, it's done, all this and that. But there definitely should be some sort of shift or split between the absolute hardcore gamers who should absolutely get the recognition that they are dumping, or that they are trying so desperately to get with the amount of work they're putting into this game. And still a reward for those who completed in the time span, maybe didn't have the time or the resources or connections to be able to do these hardcore activities at the competition level that, endgame gamers, the hardcore ones, are essentially Olympic athletes when it comes to video games. You know, they're busting ass. They're coming up with methods on the fly. They're spitting different ideas out left and right. And
Well, they pre-plan it too.
Absolutely,
like,
yeah.
They look at the patch notes and they're like, oh, well, the GL's got a 20% buff, but previously they got that 10% buff. So then, boom, you got to use GL's day one.
You know, they're master tacticians and strategists that are going to get it completed, and they should get their recognition. Mm-hmm. That I can absolutely agree with you on.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that I think is going to be a huge issue, because recovs are still a huge problem, is that this day one is going to get recoved the hell out of. It's 48 hours. Now, if they complete it on their mains, the first 24, boom, they come in 48 hours, pop, 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 boom, every Joe Schmo has it. Like, literally, we might even see this as the biggest completion rate, because there's probably over 5 to 1,000 recov people in PvE alone. And then that number shoots up if you add PvP.
I'm sure even higher if you're going worldwide.
Yeah, well, if you're going worldwide, yeah. Because I'm pretty sure, like, Guardian Services has over 100 members easily. Maybe even into the thousands. You got Blazing Boost, who takes people from Diamond Rank. And some of those Diamond Rank players are going to get the day one. And, like, there's a plethora of people in the Cov sites that will get the day one in the 24 hours, and then they're going to go on into those Covs making $300+ per day one, and then boom, they're going to be making 2, 3, 4,000 in a single day, like,
if not even more, if they're able to quickly figure out how to shave that time down in between with all the knowledge they're garnering. That's absolutely an issue.
Because once you clear it once, it gets easier. Once you clear it twice, gets significantly easier. You're learning more and more and adapting more and more. Then you're continuing on going, learning, boom, boom, boom.
Until it becomes second nature to do the raid.
Like, I'm sure now if a lot of the people who have farmed Kingsfall, farmed Vow, farmed any of the raids, did day one settings where they were 20 under, you would be falling asleep in your chair being able to do it with ease.
I mean, especially with how build crafting is now. Like, it definitely is an issue. I guess really we're just gonna have to wait and see how things play out.
Yeah, that's really how it's gonna be. I'm not against it being 48 hours. I just want some extra merit for the 24-hour people. Is basically what I'm getting at from my point.
Yeah.
And for you, I think you're of similar standpoint. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're of similar standpoint where the 24-hour people deserve their extra merit, and the 48-hour people deserve to try it and get their challenge that they want to try.
Absolutely. No, 100% correct.
Like, at the end of the day, if they keep it the 48 hours, that's kind of what I expect to see from the future TWAB that they're planning on releasing, but we'll never know until we get to see it. But basically, that is going to be the end of this debate and discussion. For all those who enjoyed the debate and sat through the whole thing, go ahead and comment your opinions on what you think, and I'll comment back, giving you some more opinions off of your opinions, and then we can progressively have more discussions in the comment section. So if you guys like this video, like, comment, and subscribe.
Thanks for having me.